Vamshi, start recording.
Okay, sir.
Now I'm saying about the spacing between the elements. The spacing between reflector and driven element is 0.23 lambda. The spacing between driven element and director is 0.15 lambda. See here it is mentioned wrong. I repeat, reflector and driven element is 0.23 lambda. The spacing between driven element and director is 0.15 lambda. Here it is written as 0.23 lambda, which is not correct. The second one is the spacing between driven element and director is 0.15 lambda, and the spacing between each director is again 0.15 lambda. Once again, I am telling the lengths and the spacings. The length of driven element is 0.5 lambda. Length of reflector is 0.55 lambda. Length of director is 0.45 lambda. Now I'm saying about the spacings. The spacing between reflector and driven element is 0.23 lambda. The spacing between driven element and director is 0.15 lambda, and the spacing between each director is 0.14 lambda. Now the lengths which I said 0.5 lambda, 0.55 lambda, 0.45 lambda, these are all measured in meters. These are all measured in meters. Now I am saying these lengths in feet. Now how will their formulas will be? Now see here. For reflector length 500 by frequency in megahertz. I repeat, for reflector length 500 by frequency. Here this frequency must be in megahertz only. Then your reflector length will be in feet. The length of director, it is 455 by frequency in megahertz. Then it will be in feet. Driven element length, it is 475 by frequency in megahertz. See, once again I repeat, reflector of length in feet is 500 by frequency in megahertz. Length of driven element is 475 by frequency in megahertz. Length of director in feet is 455 by frequency in megahertz. Now the length of parasitic element also offers some impedance. Now what type of impedance it will offer? Let us see that. If the length of parasitic element is greater than or equal to lambda by 2. I repeat, if the length of parasitic element is greater than or equal to lambda by 2, it will offer inductive impedance. It will offer inductive impedance when L is greater than or equal to lambda by 2. In this case, current will lag behind induced voltage. In this case, current will lag behind induced voltage. Next, if the length is less than lambda by 2, it will offer capacitive impedance. If the length is less than lambda by 2, it will offer capacitive impedance. In this case, current will lead the induced voltage. Once again, I am saying this point. The length of parasitic element also offers impedance. If the length is greater than or equal to lambda by 2, the impedance is inductive. In this case, current will lag behind induced voltage. And if the length is less than lambda by 2, the impedance is capacitive in nature. Here the current will lead the induced voltage. This antenna is also called as high gain antenna or super gain antenna or super directive antenna. I repeat, this antenna is also called as high gain antenna or super gain antenna or super directive antenna. Why? Because we can use up to maximum of 40 number of directors. If 40 number of directors are used, then front to back ratio will be increased. Generally, an antenna should have good front to back ratio, which means more the front to back ratio, more will be the directivity of the antenna. Now, another one is helical antenna. Now, this is very important as far as your common exams are considered. There is a special property of this antenna, which is nothing but circular polarization. What is this polarization? And again, what is the circular polarization? Polarization is nothing but the direction of electric field. I repeat, polarization is nothing but the direction of electric field. So now this is about polarization. Then these polarizations are divided into three types: linear polarization, circular polarization, elliptical polarization. Now, since we are talking here about circular polarization, I will say a best example for this. This helical antenna will be in the shape of helix. Helix is nothing but a spring-like structure with some n number of turns. Circular polarization example here is nothing but, see, sitting in our home, if we put that antenna here, we can see the free to air channels of another country in our country. For example, there is some channel called Geosports, which is a free to air channel of Russia. We can watch that channel here. Another channel, Pogo, that also can be viewed here without any subscription. So these are the examples for circular polarization. That's nothing but viewing channels of free air channels of other countries in our country. Now see the first point here. The helical antenna is useful at very high frequency and ultra high frequencies. This already have said in the initial stage. And the main property of this is circular polarization. This is the only antenna which is used to provide circular polarization. Make a note of it. Now, I'm saying about the construction. It consists of two conductors, inner conductor and outer conductor. In the figure, you can see that. Helical antenna is connected between coaxial cable and ground plane, which is found in the form of a helix. Can you see? See, now I'm saying clearly. The small circle inside the bigger circle, you can see that the bigger circle is the outer conductor, small circle is the inner conductor. That bigger circle means bigger conductor is connected with the ground planes, and these ground planes are made of radial conductors. I repeat, outer conductors are connected to ground plane, which are made up of radial conductors. Yeah, that's it. Now, the inner conductor, a small circle inside, it is connected to a coaxial cable. Yes, that one. It is connected to a coaxial cable, which is wound in the form of a helix. Which is wound means you have folded it in the form of a spring. Okay, that is called wounding, which is wound in the form of a helix. From the figure, the small d is diameter of the wire, s is spacing between each term, each turn, sorry, spacing between each turn, TURN. L is axial length, capital A is axial ratio. Axial ratio A is equal to N into S. That is not N suffix S, that is N into S. N is number of turns, S is spacing. If there is N number of turns, then axial ratio is A is equal to N into S. Now, this helical antenna operates in two modes. One is normal mode of radiation, another one is axial mode of radiation. This normal mode is also called as broadside mode. Axial mode is also called as end fire mode. I repeat, helical antenna operates in two modes. One is normal mode, another one is axial mode. Normal mode is also known as broadside mode. Axial mode is also known as end. Now, in normal mode, these parameters, beam width and efficiency, are very less. I repeat, in normal mode, there is a disadvantage. What is that? Beam width and efficiency are very less. Generally, efficiency should be high. But in this case, what is happening? Efficiency is becoming low. But these parameters can be increased. Which parameters? Beam width can be increased as well as efficiency can be increased. How you are going to increase them? By increasing the number of turns. Indirectly, it means by increasing the number of turns means what is that? You are increasing the size of the antenna. I repeat, in normal mode, generally beam width and efficiency are poor or less. But these can be increased by increasing the antenna size, which in turn means you can increase the number of turns in order to increase the beam width as well as efficiency. Now, this is very important point. A helical antenna is a combination of small loop antenna and a short dipole antenna connected in series. I repeat, a helical antenna is similar to a small loop antenna and short dipole antenna connected in series. Now, in the first unit, we already learned field components of dipole antenna, means Hertzian dipole. What is the value of E theta? What is the value of H pi? Similarly, for small loop also, we have found what is E pi and what is H theta. Now, for small loop, the electric field component is E pi is equal to 120 pi square Ia sin theta by lambda square r. I repeat, E pi. This is for the equation 1 here represents, this is the far field component of a small loop. How I am saying this is far field component? Far field is represented by small r in the denominator. If it is r square, it will be near field. If it is r, it will be far field. I repeat, if it is divided by single r, it is called as far field. If it is divided by r square, it is called as near field. And if it is divided by r cube, then what kind of field it is? Can anyone say? Can anyone say that? If it is divided by r, it is far field. If it is divided by r square, it is induction field. If it is divided by r cube, it is electrostatic field. Now we are considering only far field terms only. The far field component, that too the far field electric component in small loop antenna is E pi is equal to 120 pi square Ia sin theta by lambda square r. Similarly, I am going to write the far field component for short dipole. Here E theta is equal to 60 pi Is sin theta by lambda r. 60 pi Is sin theta by lambda r. So now you will get a doubt, sir, why we need to write these two formulae? Why? Because the performance of your helical antenna in normal mode will depend on a term called axial ratio. I repeat, the performance of helical antenna in normal mode will depend on a term called axial ratio, which is denoted by capital AR, which is defined as ratio of magnitude of E theta to E pi. You can see it in equation 3. Axial ratio AR is equal to magnitude of E theta by magnitude of E pi. Here E theta means far field component of short dipole. E pi means far field component of small loop. Now you will substitute equation 2 and equation 1 in equation 3. Then you will get AR is equal to, axial ratio is equal to S lambda by 2 pi A, where S is spacing, lambda is wavelength, A is area. Generally area of circle is pi r square. Instead of radius, if I write diameter D, then radius is equal to D by 2. Pi r square can be written as pi D square by 4. That's what I wrote here. AR is equal to S lambda by 2 pi r. Instead of r, I kept pi D square by 4. Now this becomes 2s lambda by pi square D square, where pi into D is circumference of helix. Here it is pi square D square. Instead of pi square D square, I can write it as C square. I repeat, C is equal to pi into D, where C is circumference of helix. Now, here you need to study 3 cases. What happens when axial ratio is equal to 0? What happens when axial ratio is equal to infinity? What happens when axial ratio is equal to 1? Make a note of it. This is very, very important. These 3 cases are very, very important. See, generally, first in normal mode, generally helical antenna will produce elliptically polarized waves. I repeat, in normal mode, helical antenna will provide elliptically polarized waves when AR is equal to 0. Generally, AR means E theta by E pi. When AR is 0, E theta will be 0. Then elliptical polarization will become linear horizontal polarization. I repeat, when axial ratio is 0, elliptical polarization becomes linear horizontal polarization. Case 2, when AR is equal to infinity, elliptical polarization becomes linear vertical polarization. Once again I repeat, if AR is equal to 0. If AR is equal to 0, elliptical polarization will become linear horizontal polarization. If AR is equal to infinity, then elliptical polarization will become linear vertical polarization. If AR is equal to 1, this is very important. If AR is equal to 1, then elliptical wave will become circularly polarized wave. I repeat these 3 cases again. If AR is equal to 0, elliptically polarized wave will become linear horizontal polarized wave. If AR is equal to infinity, then elliptically polarized wave will become linear vertical polarized wave. If AR is equal to 1, then elliptically polarized wave will become circularly polarized wave. In the above, you got it as AR is equal to 2s lambda by c square. For circular polarization, you need to equate it to 1. Then 2s lambda by c square is equal to 1. See here, he has not substituted c in place of pi and d. Okay, pi into d means that is circumference. Here it is pi square into d square, means you need to write here c square. Finally, here in the last line, s is equal to pi square d square by 2 lambda, which means c square by 2 lambda. Make a note of it. Make a note of it. Here he has written, see it here. S is equal to c square by 2 lambda. But pitch angle alpha is equal to tan inverse of s by c. 1 by c, I am writing it separate. Instead of s, I am writing c square by 2 lambda. The c in the numerator and denominator will get cancelled. Then it will remain it as tan inverse c by 2 lambda. This is everything about normal mode of radiation. Once again, fastly I will repeat. First, normal mode of radiation characteristics are obtained when the dimensions of antennas are very less compared to wavelength. In normal mode, the direction of maximum radiation will be perpendicular to helical axis. In this mode, beam width and efficiency are less, but these can be increased by increasing the antenna size. Next point, a helical antenna is similar to a small loop antenna and short dipole connected in series. Next, you will write a far field component of a small loop, and then you will write far field component of short dipole. Why you are writing this? Because the performance of helical antenna in normal mode is determined by a term called axial ratio, which is denoted by AR, where AR is defined as ratio of magnitude of E theta to magnitude of E phi. Here E theta is far field of short dipole, E phi is far field of small loop. Then here you will come across 3 different cases. If AR is equal to 0, then elliptically polarized wave will become linear horizontal polarized wave. If AR is equal to infinity, then elliptically polarized wave becomes linear vertically polarized wave. If AR is equal to 1, then your elliptically polarized wave will become circularly polarized wave. Then you will calculate pitch angle alpha, which is nothing but tan inverse of s by c. Here you got s is equal to c square by 2 lambda. Then you will get alpha is equal to tan inverse c by 2 lambda. That's everything regarding your normal mode of radiation. Now coming back to axial mode of radiation. The axial mode of radiation characteristics are obtained when circumference c and spacing s are in the order of one wavelength. What I mean to say here is, in this case, in axial mode of radiation, the value of circumference c and the value of spacing s should be of the order of one wavelength. Means indirectly c should be lambda, s also should be lambda. One wavelength, c must be equal to lambda. Similarly, spacing must be also equal to lambda. In the name itself it is mentioned axial mode. Axial means in this mode the maximum radiation will be along the direction of helical axis. I repeat, in this mode the direction of maximum radiation is along the helical axis. Generally, here also radiation efficiency and beam width will be small, but these can be increased again by increasing the antenna size, nothing but increasing the number of turns. There are certain formulas to be remembered here. Terminal impedance R equal to 140 C by lambda. HPBW is equal to 52 by C under root lambda cube by NS. Here HPBW is in degrees. BWFN, that is nothing but 2 into HPBW. That's nothing but 104 by C under root lambda cube by NS. Directivity. This formula you need to remember. Directivity. Directivity is equal to 15 NSC square by lambda cube. Directivity is equal to 15 NSC square by lambda cube. See here BWFN, it is written as 115 by C. You take it as 104 by C. BWFN is equal to 104 by C under root lambda cube by NS degrees. The formula which you need to remember here are tan alpha is equal to S by C. I repeat, the formulae which you need to remember here are tan alpha is equal to S by C. Next, HPBW. Next, BWFN. Next, directivity. These four formulae will be very, very important for solving the problems related to helical antenna. I repeat, tan alpha is equal to S by C, where alpha is pitch angle, S is spacing, C is circumference. Again, C can be written as pi into D, where D is diameter of helix. Next, HPBW is 52 by C under root lambda cube by NS. BWFN is 104 by C under root lambda cube by NS. Directivity is 15 NSC square by lambda cube. Now, get back to this horn antenna. This is also one of the most important questions, and this question has been asked in the last year previous question paper. I'm talking about 2019 question paper. He simply said, sketch and explain different types of horn antenna. For that, we need to know what is a horn antenna, what are its types, and what are the conditions we need to follow to make a optimum horn. That's it. No, I'm telling you the definition of horn antenna. Till now, we read three antennas: folded dipole antenna, Yagi-Uda antenna, and helical antenna. All these antennas are used at very high frequencies and ultra high frequencies. Now, this horn antenna is used at microwave frequencies also. It is similar to that of an opened out waveguide in which one end is excited and the other is kept opened. See, it's nothing but this horn antenna looks like a horn, means it is in the shape of a horn. Okay, it has two ends. One end is closed and the other end is opened. Here excited means one end is closed. You are closing that end with some sort of supply, and the other is kept open. Why you are keeping other end open? Because the wave should get radiated out of it, and the radiation coming out of waveguide is more compared to transmission line. This horn is made up of transmission line. Transmission line is nothing but a pair of conductors. A pair of conductors which are parallel to each other. I repeat, the radiation coming out of waveguide is more compared to transmission line. Understood this point? The radiation coming out of waveguide is more compared to transmission line. The radiation coming out of waveguide is less. Just now I said it is more compared to transmission line. Now I am saying the radiation coming out of waveguide is less. Compared to what? Compared to reflections. Which reflections? See, you have placed one horn antenna as transmitter at one side, another horn as receiver at some other space. See, in between there will be different buildings, different trees. Okay, there may be mountains, there may be anything in between. then signal cannot directly propagate from transmitter to receiver. It goes from transmitter to receiver via some reflections. Now here the radiation of your what we say waveguide is less compared to what reflections, and these reflections take place due to impedance mismatch. Impedance mismatch means impedances are not equal. Now you will get a doubt, why sir is speaking about impedance mismatch, then what happens if impedance is matched? I'm clarifying that doubt now. In second year you might have read maximum power transfer theorem. That theorem states that if source impedance and load impedances are equal, then maximum power will be transferred. Here I am saying radiation is less. Radiation is less means power is less. If power is less, then impedances are mismatched. If the power is more, then impedances are matched. Are you getting this point?
Yes, sir.
Now, in order to overcome this non-directive and poor radiation, overcome means to prevent this non-directive and poor radiation, we use horn antennas. If we use horn antennas, the what we say, the power will be uniform in nature. Uniform in the sense, how to explain this? The directive will be more mean. What I mean to say is, if it is plane, if the power flow is uniform, means it is flowing in the same time from transmitter to receiver in a uniform way, then directivity will be more, indirectly efficiency will also be more. That's what he said here. In order to overcome non-radiative and poor radiation pattern, we use horn antennas to produce uniform phase front. Here phase front means uniform plane waves. Now horn antennas are classified into two types. One is rectangular horns, another one is circular horns. Now first I am saying about rectangular horns. Rectangular horns are fed with rectangular waveguides, means they are made up of rectangular waveguides. Circular horns are made up of circular waveguides. What I mean to say is rectangular horns will be rectangular in shape, circular horns will be circular in shape. Again, these rectangular horns are classified into two types depending upon flaring. Flaring is nothing but opening out widely. Did you see the shape of a horn? Loudspeaker. Did you see the shape of a horn on the towers outside?
Sir.
Yes. The opened out structure is called as flaring. The opened out structure is called as flaring. Depending upon the types of flaring, rectangular horns are classified into two types. One is sectoral horn, another one is pyramidal horn. Sectoral horn. If the flaring is done only in particular direction, either in the direction of electric field or in the direction of magnetic field, you have to do flaring only in one direction, either in the direction of electric field or in the direction of magnetic field, then it is called as sectoral horn. I repeat, only one direction only you have to do the flaring. If you do it in, you have to do either in E plane or in H plane, then only it is called as sectoral horn. Again, these sectoral horns are classified into two types: E plane sectoral horn, H plane sectoral horn. E plane sectoral horn, in this flaring is done only in the direction of E plane. H plane sectoral horn, in this flaring is done only in the direction of H plane. Got this point?
Yes, sir.
Now I am discussing about pyramidal horn, another category in rectangular horns. If the flaring is done to both the walls in the direction of electric field as well as in the direction of magnetic field, then it is called a pyramidal horn. I repeat, only oka direction lone flaring cheste ganaka, that is sectoral horn. Only E plane lone cheste E plane sectoral horn. Only H plane lone cheste H plane sectoral horn. రెండిట్లో చేస్తే గనుక pyramidal horn. Got this point?
Yes, sir.
Next category, I am talking about circular horns. These are made up of circular waveguides, or these are fed with circular waveguides. These are classified into two types: conical, biconical. In conical horns, flaring is done at the walls of circular waveguide. I repeat, in this, flaring is done at walls of the circular waveguide. You can see the diagram. Okay. Can you see something in circular shape there? If the flaring is done at both the walls, then it is called as conical horn. Next category is biconical horn. If the flaring is done at the walls of circular waveguide, and if two conical horns are connected, then it is called as biconical horn. See, in conical horn, you have used only one cone. If you connect one more cone on the left side to this cone, then it will become biconical horn. If two conical horns are connected, then that is called as biconical horn. Now, design conditions of optimum horn. This is very important question. This time I am expecting this question. See here, optimum conditions for designing a horn antenna. Here you have considered a diagram. Okay, diagram is not clear here. In the center of this diagram, there should be a axis in between, which is not mentioned. See, like this. See, the diagram is same here. You see the conical horn here. Conical horn.
Yes, sir.
There is an axis in the middle now. Similarly, there will be axis in the middle here in this diagram. Okay. The complete angle is 2 theta. The complete angle is 2 theta. The entire height is h. The entire height is h. On the top, it is that is the axis. Very good. See, the length of that axis is L. Length means that part in the down part only. That is called length of axis.